The dude runs angry with the ball. He just has to catch it. That's the only thing. Yeah. Like just catch the ball because he seems to be in the right place at the right time.
That's the problem for the entire receiving corps is catching the ball. What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Chasing It. Trey Wingo here with Chase Daniel. Chase, Week 12 rolled through this Sunday. Some amazing games. None more ridiculous and fun and entertaining, perhaps, than the game between the Eagles and the Bills. The Eagles find a way to get it done again in overtime. They take care of Buffalo. They move to 10-1. And look, we can talk a lot about metrics and we can talk a lot about stats. But what you saw from my perspective on display with the Eagles Sunday was something called championship DNA. They were getting obliterated in the first half. They were completely outplayed, yet they hung in there, made a few big plays, and found a way to win. That, to me, is more important than any numbers you can throw up on the screen.
There's no doubt about it. And the fact is they ended up winning in dramatic fashion in overtime. But it was like that first half was like that hangover from that Super Bowl rematch of a week ago. And that's the same with the Chiefs. The Chiefs took them like a quarter and a half to start too. So two heavyweight battles. You like to see it. And honestly, like the Eagles for me, just the word of the night for me, I just kept coming back to it, is resilient. Just a resilient bunch of guys in a rain-soaked game. I mean, at one point, they had thrown through three quarters. Jalen Hurts and the Eagles had thrown for 91 yards and had just cut the lead to 3. And so you do that, and then you have a heavy dose of DeAndre Swift. At one point, Jalen Hurts had 3 touchdown passes in his last 4 attempts heading into like the fourth quarter. So you just see that. And then Jake Elliott, like no one talks about that guy. Like how many big kicks has that dude made? And honestly, you look back on games like this in another Super Bowl run, if that's what they're going to end up doing, and you're gonna be like, man, like Jake Elliott, okay, 59 yards in the rain at home. In the rain. So like that, the first thing that I went to right there is like snapper, holder, kicker. Because I was a holder for 4 years and I was putting myself in that position. I was like, there's no way in hell I'd want to be in that position. Because if you drop it, dude, it'd be awful. It's like the old Tony Romo in Seattle Seahawks.
That's a great point because no one ever talks about the hold. They talk about the snap and they talk about the kick. No one ever talks about the hold in those situations. So it's it's got to be a low kick because it's coming out. It's 59 yards. It's in the rain. The ball's going to be slick. How much anxiety is there on a holder in that situation? How much was there on you when you did it?
I mean, a lot. And I remember I played in a snow game in Cincy, and I tried like so many different, I tried both gloves on both or 2 hands, and I tried a glove on one hand, then I tried no gloves. I ended up going no gloves in the snow, and the whole time I wasn't even worried about going into the game if Drew were to get hurt on offense. I was worried about getting the hold down, and sure enough, we had like a game-winning field goal kick that, and it was perfect. It was good, but you just constantly think about it. You're constantly getting snaps on the sideline, and that's literally the first. I mean, I had anxiety like on the watching the game, figuring like, oh my gosh, can you just imagine? Okay, like everyone has to do their job from the snapper to the holder to the kicker. The kicker has been like really, really good, and the fact is they got it down, they got the win, they ended up going to overtime, and the other side of the ball too with Josh Allen and Buffalo. To me, they played a hell of a game, honestly, but it just wasn't enough.
Well, listen, everyone says there's no superior team in the NFL this season. I think it's pretty clear that the Eagles are that team. It's pretty clear that the Eagles are that team. You can say whatever about the drops by Marquez Valdes-Scantling and a couple of the players in the Monday night game that might have won the game for the Kansas City Chiefs. It might have. The Eagles just find a way to win. To me, there's no doubt that they are the most – I'm not saying they're the most dominant team in the NFL, but if I had to bet on one team to show up week in and week out and find a way to get it done, it has to be the Eagles.
Well, it does, and I just don't think that Nick Sirianni gets enough credit because they've lost both offensive coordinators to head coach, or both an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator. So both coordinators are gone. You have 2 brand new coordinators coming in, Brian Johnson, Sean Desai, and they just seem to not miss a beat. They're 10-1. It's just like, how are they ever going to lose? It's just they seem to find a way to win. And the way I like watching it as a fan now is, man, I love watching Jalen Hurts, and I love watching his demeanor on the sideline, his demeanor in the game. He's just so cool, calm, and collected. It never gets to him. And the fact is, like, they were getting their butts beat early. And there was just like no panic. Like, he looks like he's moving in slow motion. And then obviously he gets the walk-off game winner, ends with 4 to 5 touchdowns. And it's just like, oh my gosh, this first half of this game was hideous and it was rainy and both teams were playing sloppy. And all of a sudden this goes to what I thought was probably the best game of the day.
Well, not only that, but let's be honest, Jalen Hurts is doing it hurt. I mean, like,
yes.
He's just saying, I'm going to have to deal with it. That knee is limiting him on so many runs where he would normally be way more explosive. And I think that sort of embodies this team and this city, right? Philadelphia is not an easy place. You know, Philadelphia is not an easy town. I mean, they want toughness there as much as they want wins. And I think the way Jalen is playing through this injury, he is more beloved in that town, I'm at this point, than I think almost anybody.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And that's the biggest thing is the Philadelphia Eagles fans, like, everyone hates them. And if you're winning, if you're on the Eagles, you love them. And even sometimes you hate them because they'll straight up boo you. I don't care if it's Jalen Hurts or Donovan McNabb or Andy Reid or T.O., whatever it is. Like, if you're not doing your job, they'll boo you. But they'll be the first one to pick you up and say, hey, great job, way to go. They're rowdy. They're crazy. They don't care what you think about them. And honestly, it's a tough place to play. It's a tough place to play, and you know, just furthers their home field advantage because if they keep doing like this, I mean, no one is close to them in the NFC. They have a 2-game lead over the Cowboys in the division. They're the number 1 seed by 2 games. And if they keep winning like this, like, the road to the Super Bowl is going to go through Philly.
Well, listen, Dallas was the hugest Buffalo Bills fan today because they thought, okay, if they knock them off, suddenly if we win in the rematch, because the Cowboys have yet to lose at home, 13 straight games that they've won, and they've never trailed in any one of those home games this season. Yeah. They have not trailed for 1 second in their home games this season. They're thinking, okay, then we get them again, we beat them here. Suddenly, we have the same record. But someone's going to have to stop Philadelphia to make that game interesting where Dallas can potentially use that flex as their home field advantage when they get to the postseason. You mentioned Buffalo. This was a game that I feel Buffalo kind of gave away. And Josh was amazing, let's be clear. I mean, over 400 yards of total offense. He accounted for 3 touchdowns, 2 throwing, 1 rushing. But Chase, both sides of Josh showed up again today. The touchdown machine, and at the most inopportune time, the turnover that really brought Philadelphia back into the game.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing, right? Like, you said it before, and I'll say it right now. It's like he has the most turnovers since 2018, since he entered the league, and it's not even close. Okay? And so that's the biggest thing. That's what you know what you're getting. And when they made the move from their old offensive coordinator to Joe Brady, okay, they thought that they were getting Ken Dorsey, yep. They thought that they were going to be able to get a turnover-free Josh Allen. That's not the case. That like, the whole problem with the Ken Dorsey firing, to me, which I didn't think it was right at the time, was they were still top 10 in all the offensive categories except turnovers. Turnovers are a player thing. Okay, it's not a coach thing. So when you change these offensive coordinators, now I will say I was really impressed with Joe Brady down the stretch on that 2-minute drive to go take the lead, because they went run, 5 runs, quick game screen, run, RPO for a touchdown in a 2-minute drive. Like, take all of it off of Josh Allen's plate, which he did, but the play calling can only be so good if you're the trigger man pulling the trigger and you can't make it's like you play 65 plays, and that 65th play, okay, that's that one play that everyone scrutinizes. It's the same story with Josh Allen. For me, it's like, hey, that one play, he had over 400 yards of offense, 4 touchdowns. Yeah. And honestly, the fourth quarter was nails and willed this team to almost to win. And it would have been a huge win for them. But at the same time, it's that one play that always changes the games. And I just want to see that one play for him not be an interception. Just throw it away. Take a sack. Like, I don't care. Just don't give the ball away, especially deep in their own territory.
Live to fight another day. And again, on balance, he played great. He led them to and by the way, if Gabe Davis and he had been on the same page, they might have won it on that first drive with a touchdown. Gabe went outside when clearly Josh thought he was going inside. He was wide open on the inside, and they just didn't connect. But right now, as it stands, with the way things are going today, the Indianapolis Colts are in the 7th seed in the AFC playoffs. And we'll get to the AFC South in a minute. We'll get to that. But real
Minshew
quick,
mania, baby.
Okay, right now these are the three teams just outside the 7th seed in the postseason. At 8, you have the Houston Texans. At 9, you have the Denver Broncos, who have won 5 straight games.
Yep.
And right now, 10, you have Buffalo. Of those 3 teams, which one are you most confident that might be able to sneak into the AFC playoff picture through the final few weeks of the season?
Before today, I would have easily said the Houston Texans. But I'm starting to change my mind a little bit on these Denver Broncos. And it's the reason is because Russ is cooking. Okay, that's great. He's playing statistically one of his better years in a long time. But without a doubt, it's that defense. Yeah. 3 more takeaways today, a safety. I think they have like 15 takeaways or something crazy in the last 5 games. So they're giving their offense multiple opportunities. The offense is cashing in. And quite honestly, at home, okay, against a Browns defense that doesn't travel really well on the road, put up 29 points. And that's the thing is like, man, like I picked the Browns to win the game. And I should have known, hey, this Browns defense doesn't really travel. Yeah, DTR got knocked out. PJ Walker was – so it's just, man, it's just crazy to me to think that – and I don't know the answer. Like, guys, I don't know the answer. It's like, how in the world do you give up 70 points to Miami early in the season? Yeah. And then you completely turn around, and the last 5 weeks, you're playing just as good as any unit in the National Football League.
Well, that's the beauty of it. They wanted in Denver, they wanted everybody fired after the first 2 weeks of the season, especially after the 70 burger in Miami. But it's amazing how long a season is, and it's amazing how much things can change. Because you're right. Over the last 5 weeks, and it really started with that snow game in Denver against the Chiefs where they beat them for the first time in 17 tries, that defense really came together. That unit is playing as well, like you said, right now, as any unit in football. And it just shows a testament to playing the long game. And you got to give Sean Payton some credit here, right? Because when it was bad, he wasn't going to fire anybody, and everyone was calling for everybody to get fired. And then the Jets came in there and won, and everybody had a really good time. Oh, Nathaniel Hackett comes back to Denver, and the Jets find a way to win. Sean Payton, you said all those things. Ha, ha, ha. You know what? The Jets laughed first. Sean Payton may be laughing last here.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I just go back to, because I know so many people on that staff, and I've always been a huge Sean Payton fan. Zach Strief, Joe Lombardi. Zach Strief's the O-line coach. Joe Lombardi's the offensive coordinator. And from my time with the Saints, and I remember in 2012, and I've told this story before, but I think it's really relevant now because I've lived it. I've been in Sean Payton's locker room when it's happened. We started 0-4 in 2012. We won 4 straight to get back to 4-4. Okay, and we ended up win-lose. Like we were a game out of the playoffs. We didn't end up making the playoffs. This reminds me of that season. I texted Joe Lombardi right after the game. I'm like, dude, this reminds me identically to like what happened in 2012. He's like, dude, it's like the same vibe but better, and we're playing better on defense. And we're also like figuring out who Russ is as a player. It's taken a little bit of time in the Sean Payton offense, but who Russ is. Hey, give Russ a primary read, give him a secondary read, and move around in the pocket. Don't try to get through 3 reads. Give him a pure progression play. And that's exactly what they're doing. And he's making plays, especially in the red zone with his feet. He's not taking sacks. There's no negative plays, very little turnovers. This is what you need to do when your defense is carrying him. And eventually Russ is going to have to carry this ship, okay? But they're doing really good things right now, and it's just a one game at a time mentality. I remember when we started 0-4, Sean was just like, shut everything else out. Put the blinders on, put the earmuffs on. Don't listen to a word. Trust that we can be the better team right now for 1 week at a time.
Did you just go old school on us? Earmuffs. You go old school on us right there?
Blinders.
Earmuffs.
Let's go, baby. No one knows what earmuffs are. I do. I'm not that old.
Yeah. Okay, so had the Chiefs stumbled today, suddenly Denver's in a really interesting position in the division because they have split. The season series with the Chiefs, but Kansas City rallied and they scored 17 second half points. Again, they had before today.
17. It's like 54,
the Chiefs
right?
had not. Yeah, no, it gets better. Before this, the Chiefs had not scored a second half point since October 22nd. They had gone over a month without a second half point, 3 games and a bye week, and they get 17 in the second half. They take care of the Raiders 31-17. Patrick Mahomes throws for nearly 300 yards, 298, I think, 2 touchdowns. Isaiah Pacheco was strong on the ground. The defense gave up 2 scores early and then put the clamps on Aiden O'Connell and company. Are the Chiefs back?
Oh my gosh. I don't think they were never.
Rashee Rice had a huge 39-yard touchdown, big play, explosive play.
Yeah. I never thought the Chiefs weren't back. I thought that they struggled through a little bit of issues that got, I guess, exposed when they played some really good teams. Okay, and but I do think, I mean, look, I love what I saw out of them, and that's what I've been waiting on, and I've been tweeting about it, and I've been very honest with Chiefs Kingdom and everyone out there is like, you just have to figure out another guy outside of Travis Kelce and maybe Isaiah Pacheco. And that right now, to me, he's gaining the trust of Patrick Mahomes. It's without a doubt Rashee Rice. I tweeted about it again today. It's like the dude runs angry with the ball. And he just has to catch it. That's the only thing. Like just catch the ball because he seems to be in the right place at the right time.
That's the problem for the entire receiving corps is catching the ball. I mean, they led the league going into this game in drops, and I think they had 2 or 3 more in this contest.
Yep.
But I want to get to a couple of other statistics. So I want you to put in perspective why these things are as important as they are. Okay, this is now the Chiefs' record with Patrick Mahomes after a loss. They're 17-3. With Mahomes as a starting quarterback, they just don't lose back-to-back games. They find a way to bounce back. The Raiders were up 14-0 in this game. So that's a double-digit lead. In Patrick Mahomes' career, this is one of my favorite stats of all time. It's absolutely insane. I got to pull it up right. In Patrick Mahomes' career, including the playoffs, you know what his record is when his team is down by at least 10 points?
That's a lot. No, what is it?
15-11. Okay, 15-11. Okay, that's a winning percentage that's a 58% winning percentage. Okay, now let's put that in perspective. That is far and away the greatest winning percentage for a team led by a quarterback when the team falls by double digits in the history of the NFL. In fact, second place isn't even at 500. Second place is Tim Tebow, whose teams are 5-6 for a winning percentage of 455. But wait, let's take it a few steps further. God. Where are some of the all-time greats on this? Otto Graham is third. He was 7-10-1 for a winning percentage of 412. And here's where it gets really interesting. Tom Brady, who everybody thinks is the greatest quarterback of all time. You know what his winning percentage was for the teams he played for when they fell behind by double digits? You want to take a guess?
380.
Dude, 379, like right on the nose. Well done by you. And the guy that many think Tom Brady replaces the greatest of all time, Joe Montana, 370, 17-20. Patrick Mahomes in these situations is so far the outlier. Like the line is a dot. He's so far away. You can't see the line from where everybody else is behind Mahomes in these situations.
Well, first of all, I never thought we'd be talking about Tim Tebow on our podcast when we talked about this.
Neither did I.
So long ago. But Tim Tebow, what's up, man? Welcome to Chasin' It. But yeah, that's so interesting because when you were telling us that in the production meeting, I was like, I almost couldn't believe it, and we stat checked it. It was right. And then you just go to Tom Brady and Joe Montana, top 5 quarterbacks in any consideration of all time, and they're like 380 and below. And so I don't know what it is. It's something about Mahomes that makes him special. It's that Mahomes magic that he has. He's never out of a game. And that's why the Chiefs, as long as he is playing quarterback for the Chiefs, they will always be relevant. They will always be relevant because of Patrick Mahomes and what he's able to do. And it's freakish. Like it reminded me this past game was just like, was it last year they're down 17-0 when Kelce caught 4 touchdowns? Yeah. It was last year, right?
17-0 at Arrowhead. 17-0.
I've seen this Raiders story again, and it's just like they own the AFC West. Like, stop playing with them. Like no one can. Denver beat them. Okay, congratulations. The first time in like 10 years or something like that.
It's the only road division loss in his career. In Patrick Mahomes' career, it's the only road division loss was in Denver this year. So obviously quarterbacks matter, right? There's no question about that. We saw that again with the Kansas City Chiefs. But I think we need to touch on something else, and that is the Brady-Belichick mirage. Okay, because it's not a Brady-Belichick thing; it's a Brady thing. It's a Brady thing. The Patriots lose 10-7 to the Giants. They miss a field goal, potentially send it to overtime.
Riveting game, by the way.
Well, at one point they had more punts than points in this game. It was freaking insane. It was disastrous. This was the first time in Bill Belichick's career as the head coach in New England where he lost a game to the worst scoring offense in the NFL. Prior to today against the Giants, he had been 12-0 as the Patriots head coach when playing the worst scoring offense in the NFL. He's now 12-1. But let's take it one step further. Here are the numbers for Bill Belichick, greatest coach of all time, a lot of people would say. With Brady, his winning percentage is .219 That's 76.8. Without him, he's 45-51. In the playoffs, when Bill Belichick has Tom Brady, he's 30-11, .732 winning percentage in 6 Super Bowls. Without Brady, in New England, 0-1, losing by 30 points to the Buffalo Bills a couple of years ago. With Brady, turnover margin was plus 203 in 286 games. Without Brady, turnover margin just plus 14 in 94 games. They have scored 7 or fewer points in the Tom Brady era 5 times. They've scored 7 or fewer points 4 times this season. It's not Brady and Belichick. Wow. It was Brady.
That's absurd. Like, that's absurd. Like, people are like, that shuts everyone up that thinks it's Belichick. Like, you can't come to me and tell me that you think it's just Belichick. It's the greatness of Brady. Now, it's the greatness of Brady and Belichick together. And listen, Brady went down to Tampa and did it without Belichick. So it was Brady. And it's just it's crazy to think about because Bill Belichick will still go down as quite possibly the best head coach of all time. We've talked about it. We both agree on that. Like, it's not even close. But to see the Giants, okay, Tommy DeVito and the Giants get a win. Hey, Tommy, get a win against New England, and they scored 10 points. It's absurd. It's unheard of. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense, and it just tells you how bad of a season it is down there in New England. And we got to talk about the quarterback situation, man. And I talked about it before, and I'm going to say it again. Like, you went in, and I say you because you can debate all you want about Bill Belichick, the GM, but don't debate about the head coach, okay? Because Bill Belichick, the GM, went into New England and decided to have those 2 quarterbacks, Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi, and they were okay with that. How does that happen?
That's a great point, and I can't answer that for you. I mean, I don't understand how you can do that. And was this the end of Mac Jones's starting career today? Bench for Bailey Zappi?
I mean, it has to be. It has to be. Like, what other way can you go into a situation saying Mac Jones is the future? Like, no. Like, that's just it's the whole thing that we talked about last week when Jake Browning and Cincy, and my tweet went viral on it, and the backup quarterback situation. Like, you went into the season with those 2 guys as your like 1 and 2. Like, there's so many other guys you can go out there and get for $10 million that'll at least elevate your offense. And that's the thing. Like, it is Mac Jones, and I think Mac Jones' tenure is over as a starter in New England. But, like, they don't have anyone to throw to. You watch the film, you put on the tape, there is zero separation. The pass protection's poor. So it's an offense as a whole, but obviously, like we've talked about it, as a quarterback, you're going to get way too much credit when things go right and way too much blame when things go haywire. Things are going more than haywire, bro. Like, it's just, I hate seeing that because I know that defense deserves better. I know Belichick deserves better, but Belichick at the end of the day, he went in and he okayed those 2 guys going in for the quarterback position to start the year. It's just, I don't know. Don't get me started on this backup quarterback stuff, man.
Well, this is the part of the pod where every week Chase says, I'm still worth $10 million a year if any team is interested.
Hey!
I'll just say this and we'll leave it here. For people that aren't old enough to remember what it was like when the Patriots weren't the most dominant franchise in football, this is what the 70s and 80s looked like in New England. A perpetual losing cycle with no hope in sight. So the Ravens go into SoFi and come out with a win. They maintain the number 1 seed in the AFC. And for more on this, Chase and I are delighted to be joined by Hall of Famer Rondé Barber, who knows a thing or two about defense, playing all those years with the Tampa Bay Bucks. Rondé, this Ravens team is interesting because despite all the love and and the hype about Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers and Odell. This team is really built around the defensive side of the football, and they delivered once again tonight.
Well, they got some pretty good players on offense, but you're right. Trey, I thought at the beginning of the year that this defense was one of the best in football coming in. They're playing the past couple of weeks without Marlon Humphrey. Cleveland's number one defense in the league, yards-wise, but Baltimore's right behind them, and they're second in points allowed, and it just shows week in and week out. I mean, defense, or at least good defense, is about a couple of things. It's about angles. It's about finding ways to hustle. And this team does it better than anybody. When you see the number of hats that gets the ball, it's very evident why they win football games. It calls 4 takeaways today. One of those was interception. But 3 of them were just guys getting their ass to the ball and getting it loose. And to me, that defines this Ravens defense. We know they're good. They can win on that side of the ball. They're very complementary to each other. And to me, it's no surprise that they're leading a very competitive AFC North. Right now, it should be a fun last couple of weeks to see if they can maintain this, because as we all know, the Ravens have traditionally, at least past couple of years, kind of tailed off towards the end, and this doesn't seem like the same defense. So we'll all be paying close attention to it.
Yeah, Rondé, I'm glad you hit on it, because I was going to ask too, like from a quarterback perspective, I know what makes a good defense because I can just see it, and it's hard to explain. You sort of hit on it, but like, what makes this defense so special? Is it the coaching? Is it the players? Is it the scheme? Is it a little bit of everything? Because as I watch them and as I watch them play, there's no easy completions. As quarterbacks, we always talk about, just give me an easy completion. They're out there smacking dudes left and right. Justin's throwing flat routes, hitting like for 3 yards. I mean, all that stuff. Like, what to you makes a good defense, and what is so special about this in particular one?
I think they have the right players at the right positions. Obviously, they got some great linebackers. Best safety / linebacker in football right now in Kyle Hamilton. But you put in Queen in that conversation. You have a great rush up front, and then their scheme under Mike Macdonald has really kind of evolved over the past 2 years. They don't use a lot of pressure, but they can, and they're very timely when they bring guys off the slot. You saw it in this game against the Chargers on Sunday night. When they needed to make plays, they weren't playing coverage. They were sending 5 and 6 guys,
right.
And it's very, very timely. I think good coordinators know how to do it that way. It's not throw the bus at the come off the bus blitzing. It's be very calculated with, and they do that, and that complements their already great player, their skill set of players, and I think they're fun to watch. When I studied them, I haven't studied them a bunch, but when I've studied them this year, it's that. It's the scheme, finding ways to get creative at the right moments, and I just give a lot of credit to Mike Macdonald. He's found a way to utilize his best players the best possible way.
He certainly has, and they have depth at every sort of position on defense, right, whether it's the line, the linebackers, or the secondary, as you mentioned, doing this without Marlon Humphrey right now. But let's look at the AFC North in total. I do think we'll see 3 playoff teams from the AFC North. But let's start with Pittsburgh. In their first game with a new offensive coordinator, and after the firing of Matt Canada, they have 400 yards of offense. They didn't score a ton of points, but they have 400 yards in total offense for the first time in 58 games, which had been the longest streak in the NFL. Do you think this offense at Pittsburgh is something that is sustainable going forward, or was this game against the Bengals sort of a fluke?
Well, I think you can ask Chase this question. Good offenses, to me, at least the ones that I played against, are about process. Like, what is your process? Obviously you have a game plan, but can you tie it all together? Are you running the ball to throw it? Are you throwing it to run it, et cetera, et cetera? And you could tell that their new offensive coordinator was like, Najee Harris needs the football. And he rushed for 100 yards today. It opened up the middle of the field, the passing game. Kenny Pickett, at least the parts of the game that I saw, looked way more confident throwing the football over the middle of the field. I mean, it helps that Freiermuth is back, obviously, at tight end to give you that option. But the quarterback looked better because I have my doubts. Chase, you played the position a long time. The dude makes you worry that he can't make the big throws when he needs to. But I think they made it easier on him today, and it showed. Obviously, they're going to play great defense, so you're always going to be in games. what you want is not to have to put it on the quarterback for him to have to win it all the time. And today, even though it was a close game score-wise, it felt like an offense that could win. And it had felt that way all year. They were winning in spite of their offense earlier in the year.
Let's go to the Browns. So Browns right now are currently the 6th seed at 7-4. Lost a tough one against Denver. Talk about quarterback issues with Pittsburgh. At least Pittsburgh knows who their guy is. Right now, DTR concussed. Don't know who's going to go out there. You got Walker. You got Flacco. Possibly they're staying on the West Coast. Add insult to injury. Like it's all over the place. What are your
Flacco plays? You should come back.
That's what I'm saying. I could come back and play. That's what I'm saying. But like, there's a real possibility.
We have been lobbying for Chase to get paid for 4 weeks now. We've been lobbying for Chase to get paid for 4 weeks now.
Yeah, I'm past that bus. But like, talk about the Browns, because I know you're not super high on them. I mean, the defense is really good, but you can only go so far with a good defense, and you don't know who's going to be playing come Sunday at quarterback.
I think Ford's a good runner. Kareem Hunt's a good runner. But you know what they were built off before, and without their star running back, it's not an offense that you can really trust. I think especially in the playoffs, if PJ Walker's your starting quarterback, can he win? He's athletic. He can do some things. You can coordinate a way for him to be impactful. But for me, the Browns, unless they're winning on defense, I mean, legitimately winning on defense. They gave up 29 points to the Denver Broncos, who are the most check-down heavy team in football. And how many yards did they give up today to Russ? 294 yards they gave up to Denver today. So it's uncharacteristic. It's the reason why they didn't win this game. They weren't able to stop an offense that had really been kind of, I don't know, pedestrian.
Stagnant.
Even though Denver was winning games, it was awful football to watch. So to me, this is what the Cleveland Browns are going to be without a legitimate quarterback. And Dorian Thompson-Robinson had played well the first 2 snap games. But again, it wasn't like gangbusters. At the end of the day, when you get into playoff football or towards playoff football, your quarterback's going to have to make some plays. And I don't know if they're right at that position when they need to be at the most crucial part of the season.
Yeah, the Cleveland quarterback situation is less than spectacular, for lack of a better term. And Joe Flacco, honestly, might be their best option. And it's not shade on Joe Flacco at this point, but if Joe Flacco might be your best option, and he would have been for the Jets, Chase and I have said that forever, they just brought Joe Flacco back to the Jets would be in a much better position they were with Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle. But it does feel like it's very defense dependent with the Cleveland Browns. And speaking of defense, you brought up an interesting point on Twitter. You had how many touchdowns in your career as a Hall of Fame secondary player?
I had 13, but only 8 of those were interceptions, and that was over 16.
Right. And so
why aren't you playing offense, bro?
So DaRon Bland now has set the record for the most pick sixes in an NFL season with 5. And to put that in context so people understand, there's not a single player in the history of the Dallas Cowboys, one of the most premier franchises in the NFL, that has 5 touchdowns in their career from a defensive standpoint. So you brought up this question, which I think was really interesting. Why are we always talking about edge rushers, whether it's T.J. Watt or Myles Garrett or Chris Jones or some of these guys as being Defensive Player of the Year when DaRon Bland, who, by the way, is only playing because Trayvon Diggs is only playing as a starter because Trayvon Diggs went down with an injury, now has set the record for most pick sixes in a single season. He has to be in a front runner for Defensive Player of the Year.
So the last Defensive Player of the Year that was a cornerback is actually DaRon Bland's teammate, Stephon Gilmore, in whatever year that was, 2019 was Defensive Player of the Year. His stat line was 6 interceptions, no touchdowns. So from the 90s on, Rod Woodson won in 93, 94 was Dion, so back-to-back corners. The next one was Charles Woodson in 2009. He led the league in interceptions. He had 9 interceptions. He had 3 touchdowns that year. This guy is through 11 games, has 5 touchdowns, and I think he has the lowest passer rating against of any qualified corner right now. Now, remember, DaRon Bland played at Sacramento State, He had 2 interceptions, had a COVID year, transferred to Fresno State, had 2 interceptions. He's got 4 college interceptions. He's got 5 touchdowns in him. And by the way, we might want to consider that the dude is a good player. Last year when Jordan Lewis got hurt, who was the nickelback, the third corner, DaRon Bland came in and had 5 interceptions last year. So the guy can obviously play. I did a study on him a couple of days ago and just went back and just watched his 5 touchdowns. He had 1 in the very first game of the year playing nickel because Lewis wasn't back yet against the Giants. And then he had 1 against the Rams. He had another one, obviously, against the Commanders. The one he had against Carolina, he's playing man-to-man. He chased the dude across the field. And if you want to go back and look at a guy that should be in consideration, watch that interception. I know the Bryce Young is struggling a little bit throwing the football. But this interception is a diving, completely stretched out, hands catch, rolls, does a barrel roll, gets up, scores. He has to be in the conversation. He's only 2 people in the NFL have more pass defense than him. Obviously, has 7 touchdowns. He's leading the NFL. We used to always say, and you guys can relate to this for me, because our offense wasn't very good back in Tampa. Our mantra was score or get the ball back for our offense, right? We wanted to score with the football. And to me, I judge corners by the way they buy and if they can take the football away. And he's doing it better than anybody in football. And compared to the 5 guys that I just told you from the 90s on that have won Defensive Player of the Year, he should be in this conversation. Edge rushers are sexy, man. They're big. They're dominant. They change games. But this dude is changing games better than any corner I've seen in probably 10 years. And it's awesome for him to be having this conversation about him.
When you studied him and when you went back, what makes him so special for people out there? Because, we can talk all day, the ins and outs of a special corner, but a guy that can not only be sticky in coverage and play man, but also has good vision in zone to understand route concepts, all this stuff goes into it. Can you talk about, no better person than a Hall of Famer to talk about, but when you studied him, what stands out the most other than the touchdowns on the film?
The fact that he makes it look easy. And there's only one way you make interceptions, especially interceptions for touchdown, look easy. It's your preparation and then seeing the opportunity and taking it. The guy is incredibly instinctive. 2 of his interceptions, one against the Commanders and the one against the LA Rams, were both cut splits, literally the same route. It almost looks like the exact same play. But he anticipated it before the snap, and he's running the route for the receiver. He made it look easy. Yeah. So for me, that's how you know that this guy is on the top of his game. And he's 24 years old, 2nd year in the league, and he's already got this understanding of how to play in Dan Quinn's defense. He's pretty special, man. 5th round draft pick that nobody could have guessed would be this good, and he's lighting it up right now. It's fun to watch.
That's awesome.
It certainly is, and it just proves, as you said, a 5th round pick. The draft is the most inexact science there is. If people actually knew what they were doing, 90% of the 1st round picks would actually be stars, but they never are. And you find guys like DaRon Bland, as you said, in the 5th round, who has 5 pick sixes on this season. That's an NFL record, and we still have 5 or 6 games for the Dallas Cowboys to play. Rondé, we appreciate your time as always, man. Thanks for being with us tonight on Chasing It. So one last game in Week 12, the Monday night showdown between the Vikings and Josh Dobbs and the Chicago Bears led by Justin Fields. Chase, Justin is a really interesting sort of discussion point here because the Bears have more draft capital than anybody in what is supposed to be a very quarterback-rich draft. They have the opportunity to go get what they want. Do you think they should? Or do you think that Justin Fields has done enough to establish himself as the guy in Chicago going forward?
Well, yeah, that's $1 million question, Trey, and honestly, what everyone's talking about in Chicago right
Technically,
now.
Technically, it's a multi-million-dollar question.
Yeah, exactly. and I'm of the opinion that I do think, especially this year, that Justin has proved he at least deserves a chance or another year, maybe with a new offensive coordinator, to prove that he is the guy. And especially, I just look at the last game he played against Detroit. They should have won that game. I thought, in my opinion, that Justin played probably his best game as a pro, because you're on the road against a potential number 1 seed in the Detroit Lions, and you go out there. The first drive was magnificent. I've never seen him look that way. He's getting through reads, he's getting through progressions. I broke it down in the way he's running the ball that game, over 100 yards rushing, and I do think that he has done enough so far to prove to not only himself, but to the regime of Chicago, to the fans of Chicago, that he is the guy, that he can be the guy. Because if the Panthers keep losing, which it looks like they're going to, the Bears are going to have the number 1 pick. Okay, look at their offensive line. They need an offensive tackle and they need a receiver. Marvin Harrison Jr. is out there. If you can get Marvin Harrison Jr., pair him with Darnell Mooney and DJ Moore, to me that is a epic receiver room and an epic group of guys to throw to with Justin Fields. Now, if you do want to go in and draft a Caleb Williams or a Drake May, that's great, okay, but I still think there's a possibility that they can keep Justin on the roster. I don't think they're just going to go trade bait him. It goes back to what we talked about of having a legitimate and decent quarterback as a backup. Right? So there's all sorts of options on the table. I think these next 6 games are going to be telling. And it's going to be telling not only for Justin Fields, but everyone on that roster. For Ryan Poles, for Matt Eberflus, for everyone. Hey, what kind of guys do we have in this locker room? Where do we need to build? And right now, for me, it's offensive tackle and receiver. Now, look, if you just fall in love with Caleb Williams or Drake May, you got to do what you got to do. But you're starting all over again. And in my opinion, Justin is still a really good quarterback in this league. This is the thing about this matchup. He got hurt in this Minnesota game. Okay, he tore his thumb up, and he's been out for a little while, was able to come back. It's going to be interesting to see how he does against this blitz-heavy defense and see if he actually has gotten better from the first matchup.
Well, what you just said is really interesting, right? Because everyone falls in love with a quarterback in the draft. And let's just go back a couple of years to the 2021 draft. Trevor Lawrence was taken number 1 overall. I think he's been proven to be worthy of that pick. Second overall is Zach Wilson, whose QBR out of 100 in his career is 30+, which is terrible. Yeah. Then you have Trey Lance, who's now languishing on the bench in Dallas behind Cooper Rush and obviously Dak Prescott. And you have Mac Jones. And Mac Jones, who has probably played himself out of being a starting quarterback of the New England Patriots, and Justin Fields. I feel like every year people fall in love with quarterbacks when they draft them, but it never really comes to fruition. So the idea of drafting a quarterback seems like a great idea all the time. But then when you draft that quarterback and you have to play them, more often than not, especially high picks in the first round, it doesn't work out.
Well, and you don't know what you have in those draft picks, right? You can think, like you said, they're the best thing since sliced bread, but they actually have to go out there on the field. They have to fit within the scheme. Now, that's what Ryan Poles is there for. That's what he was brought in for. Does the scheme of either Drake May or Caleb Williams or Justin Fields, which scheme fits our guy better? And if it doesn't, then if we're going to go a completely different scheme for Drake May, then we need to build our team for Drake May. Or if it's Caleb Williams, we need to build our team for Caleb Williams. I can already tell the pieces around Justin, they're sort of building it in that way. Now, other than the first 4 or 5 games on offense this year, Luke Getsy's done a pretty good job of saying, hey, okay, you're a shotgun quarterback. Let's give you a read or 2 reads and then take off and go. Let's incorporate the quarterback run game. So all that stuff is in their favor. But like you said, it's a crapshoot at drafting the quarterback. At least you know, if I'm Chicago, that we have the draft capital to actually go out and build around a guy who we think possibly in Justin Fields could be the future of the franchise.
Yeah, look, it's all great when you see this new thing and you think, this is what I want. But at the end of the day, I mean, let's just take Patrick Mahomes as an example, right?
Yeah.
He's as great as a quarterback as there is, but even he needs help. Like, there's a reason the Chiefs are scoring less points per game right now in the Patrick Mahomes era than they have at any point, because the receiving room is not great. It's as lean as it's ever been, even though they're 8-3 and he's doing amazing things. So why don't we just take Justin Fields, who we know can provide us with enough game-winning plays, and build around him instead of doing the thing where you lather, rinse, repeat, and start over and over again like, wait for it, the Jets.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, your time's running short, and you know what you have in Justin Fields. In my opinion, there's enough tape. Given the offense, right? Like, I don't even use the tape against Justin Fields, like against him, when he's running an I formation under center offense. He's not that type of quarterback.
No.
And quite honestly, half of last year until the New England game and 3-4 games into this year, that's what they were doing. So throw those out the window. Give me the games that he was doing what he does best. Like, a lot of people, including myself, possibly saw the jump in year 3 going like Jalen Hurts did in year 3.
Yeah.
Okay, it hasn't quite been that way because they don't have the pieces around him like Jalen
exactly
Hurts did.
because the team around him isn't as good as the team around Jalen Hurts, and it's not taking anything away from Jalen Hurts, who made amazing plays. But most quarterbacks need better players around them to be the best version of themselves.
Yep, that's what offense is. 11 players, you're only one. You need your other 10 around you at all times doing the right thing at the right time in your whole entire franchise. If you want to put your franchise, the Chicago Bears, on Justin Fields' back, I think he can handle that burden. You just have to build around him.
Yeah, which is why I will die on this hill. Wins and losses are not a quarterback stat. They're not. Teams win games. Teams lose games. Teams win championships. The quarterback has an extra burden, but if he does his job and nobody else does their job, it doesn't fucking matter.